Welcome back to the Awakening Potential Show. This is a space where ordinary softens and extraordinary is allowed to emerge. I'm your host, Karen Rudolph, and this show it's for visionary leaders or anybody who carries a lot and has learned a lot and quietly know that there's so much more, not more to do, rather more to remember. Here we talk about awakening, and not as a concept, rather as a lived experience through real stories, embodied wisdom, and conversations that meet life where it actually is. This is where sassy confidence meets classy wisdom and badassy brilliance gets to be expressed without apology. So take a breath and give yourself permission to fully be here. Today, I'm honored to share the space with someone whose journey reflects the very heart of the work. My guest, Christina Maksoud, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It happens literally all the time.
Oh,
So
oh, I never forget Face's name as well. I'm working towards that one, but
that's okay.
thank you and forgive my. Christina shares her content, which is focused on truly conscious living and personal growth from real life experiences. She and her husband are direct, she's a creative director and co-founder of Makshou Productions. She and her husband do video productions and podcasting. They have a studio here in Sarasota, which I'm excited because that's where I live. And she has a podcast herself, which is called Beyond Titles. I love that. And it's where success and passions drive successes for the listening audience, much like Awakening Potential, which I really love. So, a warm welcome to Christina Maksoud. Christina, thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I know we originally met at Bluebird. I guess it's been a few
Yeah.
weeks now, right? Oh, I guess we're approaching on a month now since that event happened. But I was able to share my story there a little bit, and everybody was very welcoming to and willing to listen to my vulnerability. So I'm excited to be a guest on today and discuss how I guess that past has driven to my purpose in business now.
I love that because it took me a while, honestly, for myself to become very vulnerable. And that's a good point you made. But first off, I just want to share with the listening audience, Bluebird is a women's group here in Sarasota, networking, expansive group for leaders in our community. Great group. Look it up if you are definitely here in the Sarasota or surrounding area, Tampa area. And vulnerability, it takes something to step into vulnerability. You're putting yourself out there and you're hoping that people aren't going to knock it down in a sense. But what I've come
Right.
to, I don't know about you, but I don't know what your experience was. I was there, I witnessed your vulnerability, which was it's a heart connection for me. When I see that and when I express myself in a heart way, and I'll be the first to admit I cry at the drop of a hat, especially when I become vulnerable and it's really putting yourself out there and it becomes a risk for many. And I know for the listening audience, and I'm saying this specifically for them, that when we do put ourselves out there in a vulnerable space, people are not necessarily going to make you bad, wrong, or think any less of you. Actually, I find from my own experiences of doing this for years and years that they're more connected to you because it makes you real and authentic. So, was that
Right.
your experience? What was your experience? I mean, you brought it up. What was your experience after doing that? Because I sensed it wasn't something that you do naturally every day.
That's very true. I don't. My experience though with it is when I did share it, and I wasn't going in there to actually share it originally.
Yeah.
I think I decided to open up a little bit more after hearing the previous speaker, who she's great as well, and her talking about her own past experiences and how deep she got into the story that I was like, oh, I don't know how many Bluebird events you had been to before, but I pretty much have gone to almost everyone, and everyone has always shared their vulnerability. And I was like, oh, maybe this is my time to actually do it in front of a room of most of the women I didn't know this time compared to other events, but I thought let's just lay it all out. And I was very pleasantly surprised to see how many women recepted to it and recepted to it well and wanted to support me afterwards. And even if my presentation that was supposed to be 25 minutes long got cut to 7 to 10 minutes because I just was that overwhelmed myself, they still proved my point in what my original topic was supposed to be, which is the sense of community, that they built a community around me to give me an uplifted feeling.
Absolutely. And we can touch a little on that as well. And it's interesting, that was my first Bluebird experience. And again, I was touched, moved, and inspired certainly by the level of not just knowledge, but presence in these amazing leaders, right? And we are the sum total of the we hang out with, right? So
Yeah.
I felt very comfortable in that space
Yeah.
for sure. I was very moved by your vulnerability and your blossoming into that. Right. And giving yourself, that's what it is, giving yourself permission to
Yeah.
be that and do that. And whatever you said, no matter how long you said it, came across so eloquently and so
Oh,
heartfelt.
well, thank you. Because I'm thinking
Right.
back to it and I remember shaking, so I don't remember actually
Right.
being.
That's your body responding to the vulnerability. But the more you do it, it's like pumping that muscle at the gym. And the more you do it, the easier it gets to start sharing and molding your story to
Right.
share with others. That's going to inspire them to take action for what you're looking for or asking for.
Right.
And I just felt so heart connected with all of those people in there. I remember going up to you afterwards and going, oh my God, it just so moved me that I would love to have you on the show because this is what you awakened your potential in that moment, is what I saw. And that's why I came up to you afterwards. And I thought, how perfect is this? It was a beautiful to witness that. So
Thank you.
this is who we are. And we don't know until we get our toes wet, right? It
This is
takes,
true.
right?
And it's either,
Exactly.
like you said, tiptoe into it or dive right in. So I think that was my option of diving right in and going for it. Because number two in all of that is I actually have a huge fear of public speaking. So
You and a million other people.
yes, it's true. I think that's the number, it's either the number two or three fear or stressor in the world is public speaking, right? So
Like anything else, when we face our fears, they tend to lessen because basically the what a fear is the unknown. So, right, the more you do it, the easier it gets. I remember the first time I got on stage, and I was sharing this yesterday with somebody. The stage must have been step, right? It wasn't big at all. And I got up there and I was like, wait, now I get on big stages and I still get butterflies. Don't kid yourself. And I
yeah,
still get that when I stop and pause and take that deep breath. I'm able to settle my nervous system, and then all of a sudden I go on to my so because I've been doing it more and more now, it's less fear. I'm not as attached to what others think. It's more attached to getting the message out there. And I think that was the biggest shift for me is conquering those fears was just doing it more often. Doing it in front of the mirror if I don't have an audience. It just
right,
the more you start doing it, your brain starts seeing it differently. So I really
right.
commend you for doing that. That was awesome. And a great way
Thank
to
you.
start the show because it's all about awakening potential. I'm curious, Christina, when you were younger, I always ask, what did you play with? What created some passion in your life?
Oh, I was a big horse girl when I was young. I was a
Oh,
big
me
horse
too.
girl and I was a dino kid. So I actually used to competitively horseback ride up until I moved down here. And I'm originally from East End, Long Island, so it there and not too far from the Hamptons. So there was a lot of access to where I could horseback ride. I actually had a couple of horses.
Wow.
And that was it taught me like a discipline and independence and not only like getting to play with those horse toys, but actually getting to eventually horseback ride. And that was my like real playtime growing up.
Yeah, I didn't get into horses until about 16 years old. I was in Cape
Okay.
Cod. I was addicted after that.
Yeah.
Rode competitively as well, played polo, hanging off the side of a horse.
I did dressage. Well, I started and then did
Yeah,
dressage. So
I hear you. I had two horses and well, I've had many horses along the way, but my last horse just passed this
oh,
past year in Sabota. He was definitely my heart. And one of the things I teach is emoting because the body always holds on to the emotions. There's those old emotions that we don't let go, the traumas that we don't let go of. The body is oh, keeps the score, right? Absolutely, it
Right.
does. So I went to the beach and I'm crying, crying. In 2008, I was inspired. I was down like write a book, and I'm like, what am I gonna, like what? It wasn't until my horse passed, right? So I like to believe things happen for a reason or season. So when he died, I went to the beach here in Sarasota and I'm crying my eyes out, emoting. And when I came home and I started writing it, I wrote my book and it became a #1 bestseller
Wow.
in 3 days. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen next time these things come up. So you never know. Those traumas, I like to believe, happen for a reason or a season, if we
Right.
choose to look at it differently. And I know you've had some personal trauma you spoke about at
Yeah.
Bluebird. I don't know if you'd want to share any of it here and how you were able to get through it and over it. If something you'd like to speak about, or we can go elsewhere with it.
About it like generally because I don't know the full audience of who will be listening, but I know I grew up in a household that was very strict.
Mhm.
Um, it definitely very stressful. I have friends. I was allowed to go out sometimes, but there was a lot of anger and stress in the house all the time. My dad was battling depression, and it definitely affected our family. So in so many different scenarios, and I had to keep our family together to the best of our ability, but I know we each were kind of our own lives to a certain degree. But with that in mind, I think I have come through all of that. And when I like moved here to Florida, which I was about 20, 21 years old when I did that. And I started a college at Ringling College in Sarasota that I think I finally found where I needed to be and I wanted to just be that person for the rest of my life, which was the creative and finding and being in my community and wanting to not only support myself being in that community, but supporting my community as well. So, and I still have a great relationship, honestly, with all of my family members. My dad has, well, since I had been to college, had properly gotten medicated and everything, but it was a long time. I was like 11 years old, but and it took like 9 to 10 years. But when we came down here, then I think it was the real light switch for everything to change and make it better, basically.
So I'm curious, Christina, some version of trauma in their
Yeah.
lives, have something and it always looks better. The green grass always looks greener on the other side.
Mhm.
And yet I believe that it's how we choose to perceive it, #1, and what we make it mean, right? We're mean making, story making machines, right? And there's always a yin and a yang. And when we choose to look at it, there's always a way through it, a way to the other side. How were you able to get to the other side of all of your traumas? Like, for the listening audience, again, those that are going through their version of trauma or horrible experiences, or I don't want to sugarcoat it in any way because it is what it is, right? We all are given something. I mean, I my share, and sexually molested when I was 11, and people look at me like,
Sorry.
oh my God, like the sky's falling. Well, if I make it mean the sky's going to fall, if I make it mean that, okay, this is what happened, what can I do? I always say, what can I build with that? That's what the book is based on. Is like, what can I build with that instead of making it mean this horrible traumatic experience? And it was, I mean, can I do with that to support myself moving through it forward and building a life for myself? Like, what was your moving through it, building?
So moving through it, like I would admit, like living through it, I guess I didn't know any different. And I didn't know that it was maybe a different way of living than other families were going through. I assumed every family had the kind of stress and in the household as I did. So and it actually was after my dad got properly medicated and like a few years afterwards that it was a light bulb in my head that I was like, oh, yeah, that's the norm actually. And it was a process when I finally realized that it was about like a year or two just like mentally with myself. And I didn't necessarily take it out on anyone. I could have identified it as like a life crisis in a way, but I didn't necessarily like take it out on anybody or anything. I with it and I evaluated it, and I did have discussions with other people and just saying like, hey, how did you grow up? Like what was it like for you? And had their own traumas, and some people had completely normal lives and just discussion points. And I think hearing the balance and knowing that their own situation made me feel better, knowing that yes, my situation is unique but also not unique at the same time.
Yeah. And what I heard you say in that also is, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And what I also heard you say earlier was build community, right?
Yeah.
We're not meant to do life alone. How did and where did the community support come in? Because so many of us feel the Lone Rangers, have to
Yeah.
do it alone. And oh my God, we're so unique, like it's all happening to us, kind of community come into it. And how would you, like a better recommend to the listening audience to find support that's going to
Right.
support them for the game.
Well, to that, I guess too, is I think why I built such a community down here in Florida. And it's not that I didn't have friends in a support system in Long Island, but maybe not as big of one, and one I didn't necessarily share with what was going on in the household. I think I can only count like maybe two people actually knew what was really going on.
Yeah.
Um, that like I'm down here and I realized this was my spot. I wanted to make sure that I had such a support system that I could be able to go to anybody as needed. And it has really shown all the work that I have been able to put into the community, that like recently actually life-changing and trauma experience. My back in my mom was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, and I had to really pull back from the community on that. And for people that know me in the business center of Sarasota, I was at every event. I was doing events 3 times a day, maybe almost every day of the week, whether it was networking or a volunteership type of effort. And when that came to basically a screeching halt in September and October, but that didn't stop the support back from everybody in the community. Like everybody checks in on me. They always ask about my mom. I'm so grateful to them. And I just, if I had a support system and community like that when I was younger back in Long Island, would it have been the same? Or would there have been that kind of situation where maybe someone helped me then? But I'm just grateful I learned how to build a community now.
So that leads to the next one. Perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that leads to the next question for those who don't know how to build a community. How do you build a community? How did you build a community around yourself?
I literally just threw myself into anything and everything. Like I said, the 3 to 4 events a day. Well, it was and I know Morris actually from Bluebird had said this as well, is that I threw myself in my business to make sure to do sales. And people expect they start a business, it's just like gonna, the money's happen. It's just gonna be there. It's gonna run it's marketing happen for you. But it doesn't, right?
That,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like here you are, your license, your certificate, go have fun,
Yes, exactly. So I learned, and especially the Sarasota community, which I'm sure you know is very, very much the relationship and the handshake. I'm used to eat that for everywhere, but I feel like Sarasota is like times infinity, honestly. But I started to all those events, and I just started introducing myself to people and just connecting. I know there's a fear factor of like wanting to connect somebody the first time, but my mom, bringing it back to her, she always told me, it's like, hey, go up. The worst thing they can tell you is no, they're not going to take away your birthday. They're not going to take away your favorite holiday. They just got to go and do it. So, and I have built so many connections with just throwing myself into it and creating those with whatever path of that networking turned into. So
Exactly. I love that. And no is just a no, right? It doesn't, it's not. I
yeah,
remember playing a game when I first started, and I don't know if you did anything like this, but I like fun and playful
yeah.
anyway. But I remember playing a game. How many no's can I get today? And when I got yeses, it was like, wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen. I was playing for 100 no's. Like anything else, the more you work the muscle, right? The more
Right.
it's not personal. But I remember playing that game and it was like, wait a minute.
But I think
Excuse
you
me.
get surprised with how many more people say yes if you're very willing to like want to be a part of their lives and be a part of the mission too. Because I think there's so many people who hold themselves back because they're their fear of the rejection, or they don't want to
Exactly.
push themselves outside of their boundaries kind of thing. And then I think they get pleasantly surprised when people do say yes and want the support.
I know, right? I love that. I've come to learn for myself, as I'm sure you have, without so
Right.
nothing, relationship is, yeah, it's the common connection that
Yeah.
keeps you, you know. And for me is, being, I mean,
Yeah.
without being of service, but there are a lot of takers out there, and it's like weeding through the crowd. And because like attracts like, and if I'm who's going to want to, and I'm sheen out there, I've found some similarities in that context.
Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm like-minded. I love connecting people that are in the arts in some kind of way. Like, oh, yeah, we're part of so many different arts organizations in Sarasota. It's amazing. Definitely business related. I mean, we love people's stories no matter what. So, um, I mean, my in the whole world, and she's actually my podcast host too for Beyond the Title. We've connected reality TV that just the baseline of that and just start quoting them all day long,
Yeah.
or at least I quote them all day long. So, and then it's just kind of transformed into a relationship, and eventually it's that baseline, and then you can eventually share maybe the deeper traumas and issues in your life that kind of tie you together, right?
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And Makshou Productions here in Sarasota, I'm sure you're some very fascinating, interesting people that rent your studios there here, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So
we've had some
speak.
pretty cool people that we've worked with. We've worked with Gronk. We've worked with oh my goodness. Oh my God, who's the football coach that was in Siesta Key? I just had him in my mind. Urban Meyer. He's come to our studio. Um, we've met with some politicians. Yeah, I'm very, not only on the scale, but even on the individual scale. Like I know one story that really sat with me recently. We did participant a client of Team Tony, which do you know what Team Tony is? So Team
No,
Tony is a nonprofit that helps who are battling cancer. And if they are maybe alone in their situation and they just do not know how to start. And I mean, they don't necessarily have to be alone, but once you hear you have cancer, it's a very overwhelming situation. So they give you the roadmap of like maybe who to start, how you can start planning it out. That yeah, and it's an amazing out to them. So we did the one video with them, and the person we interviewed, her name was Dee, and she had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and as she was almost done completing all her chemo treatments and going through all the surgeries and going through recovery, then she gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Luckily it was early onset, and they were able to, she was able from that, and she's in remission now. She doesn't like to use the word remission. She likes to say the word heal because she wants to make sure that it doesn't come back.
reality,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I felt so connected to her because of the moment that she did say that, like when they told her she had cancer. I was there when mom was told and diagnosed, and it was just like a heartbreaking situation for both of us. And I never cry during interviews, and being able to interview somebody, and that one I just like bawled like a baby. Yeah,
Before we get back to this, because I know
yeah.
you have a gift for the listening audience, but what got you work and video work?
So I guess that was one of my toys too when I grew up. But I think about that. Um, but when I was years old, I stole Photoshop and I taught myself graphic design.
Love it.
And then a couple years later, I stole a video editing software and did the same thing. I just taught myself video editing and animation actually, and then I just combined the two and I started to create motion graphics. I when I went to that's what I studied was actually animation, and I met my husband there at Ringling, and he was in the same program as me, and he was actually a part of the broadcast club on campus, so he learned a lot of camera work. He ended up working at ABC 7 locally in town. He was a year ahead of me before I when I was in school, it was a time where it was harder to find a full-time position. And for those that don't know, Ringling is not a cheap tuition by any means. Still paying like $100,000 in debt today, and it's been 10 years. So
Many colleges. Yeah.
yes, yes. But it's we when I saw there was a need in Sarasota for creating content marketing for businesses. It was like that perfect transition point where, new businesses were they didn't know necessarily how to market themselves, and we wanted to be able to jump in on that. And instead of looking for a full-time job, I jumped right in within 3 weeks of graduation, and we got married and started this company. So, and the community is
Love
obsessed
that.
with video production ever since.
I love that. I love. I really heard out of that whole story, and thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. Was you're living your passion. You played with this, right? That's why I always
Yeah.
ask that question because when you're in your passion and living your passion, it's something usually related to something that you really found joy in as a child. And most people don't think that. I have clients come often and will say to me, "I'm looking for my purpose. I don't know what my passion is. I don't." Look back there, right? Look back there. You'll find some relatedness if you're truly
Right.
living it. So, and obviously that's what you're doing. And as you're talking, and the listening audience gets to witness this, you got really animated. She's passion, right? That's a true sign of living passion.
Yeah.
Love that. You have our listening audience, or obviously you
Yeah.
have to be local for this, but what is it? Share with us.
So, local businesses in the area, and I guess individuals, aspiring podcast creators, whether it is to market your business or yourself, or if you have a story you want to share, actually have a podcast studio, like I was saying before, for people to rent out, but people that are able to email me at Christina at Makshou.com, Maksu.com. You can get your first free hour of podcast recording and editing done with us to as a trial basis to see if you like podcasting. So,
Love that. Thank you so
yeah.
much. And of course, all of your contact information and that information will be
Yep.
in the show notes. Make sure you reach out. And if you put Awakening Potential, she'll know exactly where you came from.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
yeah, I always, this is a pleasure. Thank you. I've enjoyed this tremendously. So
Thank
for
you.
you, yeah. I always ask part, what is one thing, I call them pearls of wisdom. What is a pearl of wisdom that you would like to leave the listening audience with, Christina?
Um, I I live by the of stay humble. I and it kind of into like, the throwing myself in where, you want to, after the opportunities there, but be grateful for the they do come to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And your story is such a powerful reminder that doesn't happen all at once. It begins the moment you become aware, and it continues with those brave, badassy, bold choices that we make along the way.
Right.
Christina Maksoud, thank you so much for your honesty, your heart, and your willingness to journey with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Loved being able to be on the show.
That's awesome. Thank you. And to everyone listening, this is a reminder that a bridge from ordinary to extraordinary is built with small steps of change and big leaps of faith. So you're more powerful than you know. Keep showing up, keep awakening your potential. And if something from the show sparked interest with you today, if you reach out to me or DM me, whatever, you'll definitely get me responding. Reach out to Christina. Her information will be in the show notes. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Awakening Potential. Bye for now.